Well, thanks, Shauna, and thanks for inviting me. I hope what we talk about today will be useful for you. When I spoke with Shauna about what might be good for this group, she told me that some of you are getting ready to do entrepreneurial ventures. Some of you are studying entrepreneurial things in school and business management. And I also thought we could talk about that. We could talk about how we've grown our company and the things that we've done. But I thought that would be of less use to you than if I were to talk a little bit about how you use social media marketing to develop a brand, whether that's for a startup, an existing business, or perhaps more importantly, a lot of what we're going to talk about today is how do you use social media to develop a personal brand. I teach social media to the MBA students at the Marriott School of Management, and I think one of the things that's been most useful for them is during the semester I help them build a personal brand and learn how to use social media to have a digital footprint, if you will. So I want to talk a little bit about that today. A little bit of background on me, very short. I come from a creative background, agency background as a creative director and a copywriter. About 10 years ago, I got involved with, I started a little company called Some Media, and we did marketing for dental practices. And it was traditional marketing. It wasn't any social media or anything online, because this was quite a while ago. And then I kind of saw the writing on the wall where social media was headed. And so I sold my interest in that company and started a company called Lava 7. We were a fee-for-service agency. We did a little bit of work with Shauna and Novell and had a number of clients for several years. Then about 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, we went back to dentistry, but with a social media emphasis. So we founded a company called My Social Practice. We do social media marketing exclusively for dental practices. And it's a revenue generating model that's perpetual. It's not a fee-for-service model. We have about 500 dental practices now around the world that pay us each month to coach them, to give them content, and teach them how to use social media to market their practices. So some of the examples I'm going to show you today are from our company, because I get a chance to talk to dentists an awful lot. I was in Nashville speaking. I spoke to 1,000 dentists in Nashville 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago. So some of the things you see I use to help explain to dentists how to use social media. But the same principles really apply to your personal brand or to any company that you're thinking of starting if you have that kind of entrepreneurial spirit. As I go through, I checked with the cameraman. He said I can flip the light off and on a little bit if you can't see the slides very well, because they're kind of being washed out by this light. Also, just as a warning, I'm going to move really, really fast because I'm kind of taking what I usually present in kind of an hour-and-a-half to 2-hour workshop. I'm trying to distill that down into about 35, 40 minutes. So I'm going to go really quick, but I guess they're filming this, so you can go back and review it later. So anyway, I hope that helps here. So social media is absolutely on the top of the mind of most companies. And wherever you go to work, if you understand how social media works in business, you'll be the smartest person in the room. I'm surprised at how many people, how many companies that you would think did know or know what to do, don't know what to do. And you can tell there from this survey that CMOs designate social media as really one of their top concerns. So what I want to do today is try to answer 3 questions. Number one, really what is social media marketing? I want to go over some basics very, very quickly, because everybody has a different concept in their head right now of what I mean when I say social media marketing. Number 2, why would this be important for your personal brand or a startup if you were going to start a company? And third, I want to give you some things today that you can actually leave today and start doing if you choose to. Now it's going to be a real 100,000-foot view when we come to these things. I don't have the time to go into the detail. But hopefully, I'm not here to help you do this. I'm here to inspire you to do it, maybe. Or to show you some things that maybe you hadn't thought of before in terms of how to use social media to market yourself or your company. So what is social media marketing? Those of you who may be familiar with Chris Brogan, and raise your hand if you can't read these, and I'll flip the light off for a while. He has said marketing has changed. Today marketing is about engaging with communities and delivering products and services with stories that spread. Chris Brogan is kind of one of the thought leaders. I use his latest book as a textbook in the class I'm teaching this semester. So it's about engaging with communities. That's really where marketing has moved. I'm often asked what's the fundamental difference between traditional marketing and social media marketing, and what I'd like to do is give you 4 or 5 quick points of how to, in your head, differentiate those two. Or if you ever have to explain this to somebody, you'll get hired by a company when you get out of here and the CMO won't know anything about social media, and he'll ask you this question. He or she will ask you this question. So you can be really smart if you know how to answer this question. What's the difference? Well, the first concept is the idea of community-driven marketing. And what I mean by that is word of mouth has been around forever, right? Ever since people talked over a backyard fence, there's been word of mouth, right? But you add to that the scalability of social media, and together those become this concept of community-driven marketing, which is defined as cultivating and enabling fans who willingly tell your story to their trusted, highly scalable, permission-based networks. So, for example, Facebook, trusted, highly scalable, permission-based. So gone are the days when a brand talks to a consumer one way. It's two-way now, right? But in addition to that, to get customers to talk to each other or talk to their friends is this concept of community-driven marketing. I'm going to show you a little clip from the Word of Mouth Marketing Organization or Association. I think it kind of illustrates this idea.
Word of mouth is the most powerful form of marketing. It builds brands, drives sales, and sparks conversations, both consumer to consumer and consumer to brand. The founders of WOMA, the Word of Mouth Marketing Association, had the vision to understand that the power of WOM would only increase as people became more interconnected through social media. This vision continues today, as WOMA has become the premier organization focused on representing and improving the word-of-mouth marketing industry. Word-of-mouth marketing can be defined simply as any business action that earns a customer recommendation, delivering the best product in a category, providing a great customer experience, rewarding customer loyalty. These are all examples of business actions that can earn customer recommendations. Recommendations are important to marketers because when a recommendation is earned, it indicates preference from a customer, leads to purchase by a customer, and results in a strong probability that the customer will tell others through word of mouth. Wow. As an organization, WOMA believes the most effective word-of-mouth marketing follows 5 principles. It's credible, respectful, social, measurable, and repeatable. Here's how we define each principle. Credible word of mouth is honest and authentic marketing messages, from brands to customers, and from customers to customers. Respectful word of mouth is transparent and trustworthy behavior, as it relates to privacy matters between brands and consumers. Social word of mouth involves brands listening to conversations, participating in conversations, responding to conversations, and encouraging conversations, online and offline. Measurable word of mouth is the ability to define, monitor, and evaluate a program's success. Repeatable word of mouth is the ability to do it over and over again in order for a business to become a truly talkable brand. The reality is, not every brand becomes talkable. However, through WOMA's ongoing education and its growing community of visionary marketers, you can learn what's working today and what will work tomorrow to make your brand a talkable brand.
So, community-driven, first concept to think about when you think about what social media marketing really is. Second, push versus pull. Traditional marketing uses push tactics designed to interrupt whatever it is that you're doing to push a message on you, right? So you're driving down I-15, you see a billboard, has one purpose, right? To interrupt you. Whatever it is you were thinking about or whatever, it's an interruption-driven strategy. Social media, on the other hand, uses pull tactics based on behavior to engage with people when and where they want to engage. And we'll talk in just a few minutes about the different ways that you can engage with people using social. Some of you, since you're business students and marketing students, you probably know who Seth Godin is, but he talks about this concept of willing participants. You can no longer market to anonymous masses. They're not anonymous anymore, and they're not masses, or you don't need to. If you have a big enough checkbook, a thick enough checkbook, and can write a big enough check for Super Bowl ad or whatever, you're going to talk to anonymous masses, right? But that's not the way most marketing is done today. You can only market to people who are really willing participants. Another idea that kind of goes with this push versus pull is a fundamental understanding of how the internet has changed. Websites, well, let me go back. So this is a dental example. So years ago, a dentist would have hired an agency to take a pretty photo, write some nice copy, and give them a little trifold brochure to market with, right? And then someone came along and said, well, you know, you got the photo, you got the copy, you ought to do a billboard, you ought to do a direct mail campaign, and suddenly they were using it in more than one way. And then it's likely that maybe a decade ago, somebody came to this dental practice. When I say dental practice, always think about what you're doing, right? Think about your business or your business idea, substitute it, because the principle's the same. Anyway, someone said to the dentist, well, you really ought to be online. Let's build you a website. And so they took the same photo and the same copy, and they put it online, and it became what is often called a Web 1.0 website. It's very static. There's nothing much dynamic about it. The difference today is that Web 2.0 has created this dynamic environment where people can not only like, follow, watch, do the things related to social media, but there are lots of other things that they can do. This is an example of the kind of blog that we build for some of our clients, which allows people to request, to subscribe, to enter to win, to visit, to enter, to interact. Again, going back to however people want to engage with the business, they can engage with the business. Okay? Big difference between old marketing and what's often called new marketing. The third concept is participatory versus non-participatory. So if you were going to market and purchase a direct mail campaign or a billboard campaign, pretty much you write a check. You hand it to the agency, and you're pretty much done, right? They do their thing. They might come back to you to get some buy-off on creative or whatever, but there's not really any ongoing engagement on your part. Social media is very different. Again, Seth Godin has said, first 10. In 2 words, this is the secret of what he often calls new marketing. Find 10 people who trust you, who respect you, who need what you have, who will listen to you. They'll each find you 10. Or maybe 1, or maybe 100, or 2. Then repeat that. This approach changes the posture and timing of everything you do. This is probably one of the very hardest principles to teach to a business when they come to think about social media. They think unless they have 50,000 fans on Facebook that it's not effective. When really, effective social media is one-to-one conversations for the most part. In fact, if you look at the engagement of large Facebook pages like Nike or Lady Gaga or whatever, that has millions and millions of likes, if you actually look at the analytics, the engagement on those pages is very, very low. Very low, like 0.0000001% engagement. But you look at a dental practice that's active on Facebook and has 300 fans, and you'll see like, 30, 40, 50, sometimes 70% engagement with those 300 fans. So bigger isn't always better when it comes to this strategy. So, if you don't remember anything else, whether it's your own brand or a startup or whatever you do, social media isn't something that you have. It's really something that you do. To be effective, you have to participate in social media, or it just doesn't work. We see that over and over with our clients. The ones that participate do really well. The fourth idea is this concept of democratization. Technology is shifting power away from editors, publishers, the establishment, the media elite. Now it's the people who are taking control. So the democratization of marketing and everything related to it, branding and everything, is one of the kind of the key concepts behind social media marketing. Tools like Twitter, for example, really shift the power from gatekeepers. Over and over in our class, I challenge people to reach out to the people they'd like to in terms of influencers using tools like Twitter. And it's surprising how well they're able to do that if you know how to do that. you can bypass gatekeepers and get to the people you want to get to using social media tools. And finally, number 5, social media marketing is really relationship marketing. In fact, the word social media, the word media, it should have probably never been assigned to this because it brings with it a lot of expectations that social media doesn't do very well. So in my mind, social media marketing should probably just be called relationship marketing. We recently developed a little video to help sell our product, and I'm going to show it to you. Even though it's dental specific, I want you to think about this concept of relationship marketing when you watch this.
For me, it's all about being connected with our patients. Our practice is relationship-based, and the more you can enhance that relationship, the better off they are. My name is Greg Pitts. Dentistry is my profession, but my passion is providing the best dental care for my patients. And that's why my practice is social. A lot of people would think there's no connection between dental practice and social media, but all the patients that we have, most of them come from word-of-mouth referrals, and there's not a greater way to spread that message than through social media. It kind of becomes viral. You take good care of somebody, and they tell their friends, and it just kind of goes exponentially. It's been a great thing for our practice to be a social practice. You know, the old saying, out of sight, out of mind, is so important when it comes to this kind of stuff. I've got a big practice, and to go out and make phone calls and touch base with every one of them, sometimes I only see them every 6 months. With it on your cell phone, it's so easy just to update what you're doing.
The reason we continue going with social media is we get feedback.
We've had patients actually come in because of posts that we've made. They say, hey, your Kids' Day looked really fun. Can I schedule my kid to come in on Kids' Day?
We really appreciate their quality and their kindness.
When we do a mouthguard day, we'll take videos, we'll take pictures, and then we put it right on Facebook. From that, patients see it and call us, make appointments.
I decided to become a patient here because Dr. Pitts came to my school and gave my team 3 mouthpieces. She got some cavities fixed.
We had a new patient come in, and the next day we see a post, and it's like a paragraph. She just really gave us a great review. She's making that public, and you couldn't ask for a better way to spread the word is by one of your patients saying that to all of her friends.
I think that showing that we're friends, that we have fun together, helps patients feel comfortable and know that they can be part of our family and part of our team as well, because we're not just here to serve their dental needs, we're here to be there for them and welcome them into our family.
You know, people want to do business with people they know. They get to know you through social media in a way that they've made the decision that they want to be a patient here before they even come in and test the waters. And it helps us kind of really promote our practice in a lot of ways. My name is Greg Pitts, and this is my social practice.
Okay, so regardless of what you think or thought before we started a few minutes ago, what social media marketing is, try to think of it in terms of those 5 concepts. Whether you're starting your own business, working on your own brand, or going to work for somebody else. And I hope that will help you sort of frame it up for people when you try to explain it to them. So let's talk about the second question. Why is it important? To kind of answer this question, let me go back to point number 4 in what we just discussed, this idea of democratization. And I want to show you, have any of you seen the film Press, Pause, Play yet? It's fairly new. It's an independent film, won a lot of awards. It's been out for maybe a year or so. And it's directed primarily to artists, to photographers, videographers, designers. But the message is applicable to anybody in my head, in my mind. And to me, business is art anyway. And so anytime in this little, I'm just going to show you a 1-minute clip. It's like the trailer for the movie. Actually, there's 2 trailers. Each are a minute long. But everywhere they talk about artists, substitute what you're interested in. If they say it's a great time for artists and you're going to be an entrepreneur, then it's a great time for an entrepreneur. It's a great time for a marketer. It's a great time for a business manager. It's a great time for whatever it is that you're doing. The message is the same.
I'm totally up for the democratization of anything. The more democracy, the better.
I think that this is an incredibly fertile time for artists. There's no cap on creativity. The technological advances have given the artists an open door to creating as much as their capacity will allow.
Anyone can record music now. Anybody can go out and make a movie. Anybody who has $1,500 can buy a camera. There's so many ways to make a movie. There's so many ways to distribute your film on the internet.
You didn't become an artist to become rich. You became an artist because you had an idea to share, because you had an emotion to share. And that's where we're heading again. More people do more art in more ways than ever before.
Everybody's equally excited and afraid. When humans make stuff, we tend to make interesting things. In the olden days of 30, 40, 50 years ago, people didn't make things. You know, like, so people would go to photography exhibits, people would go buy records, and there were professional artists. And now everybody's a photographer, everybody's a filmmaker, everybody's a writer, everybody's a musician.
It's great for, like, the music environment.
Anybody could make it. It's pretty interesting. You're gonna have a lot more creativity rising to the top.
That's a reality. It's an unfortunate reality.
And that's all part of that rebellion, is refusing to believe all those people.
We have no clue of what's going to happen.
Oh, there's a recession, blah, blah, blah. This is the best shot you've ever got.
So what did Arthur Keene, the author, mean when he said a couple of frames back, it's a reality, but it's an unfortunate reality. This ability, this democratization, this ability for anybody to publish, for anyone to grab a hold of their own marketing and do it themselves, there are some problems with that, one of which is something that we're going to talk about to try to answer this second question. So in the little clip, Moby said everybody's equally excited and equally afraid. The problem is that anyone can participate, and that's the good news and the bad news. Both, is that you can all do it, and everybody's doing it. So people don't know how to stand out. From the movie itself, not from the clip, it makes it a lot harder to break through the noise. And that's what the author, Mr. Keene, what he meant by it's unfortunate, is that it's a lot harder to break through the noise. There's a guy by the name of Mars Dorian, and I'll give you his website address in a minute because I think it'll be useful for you. But he has said if you don't stand out online and differentiate yourself, you vanish into oblivion. No one will pay attention, be judged, or be ignored. That's the bad strategy of creating a little video and hoping that it'll go viral. Now, I know we have a couple video guys in the room that are actually doing really well with video. So it isn't that it can't work. It's just not really a good strategy for most businesses to think they're going to slap something up on YouTube, it's going to go viral, and they're going to be famous. You know that's true. It's like your retirement plan being based on winning in Vegas or winning the lottery or something. Same idea. So I'll give you this too at the end, but Mars Dorian is an artist who has really done a good job at helping students, for the most part, develop their own personal brands to be able to really stand out online. And I'd really recommend subscribing to his blog, and I'll give you that URL in a minute. So the good news, the bad news, anyone can participate, but the fact is that most people just don't know how to do it, especially students. Now, you already know that when you go for a job, what's the very first thing an employer, they have your resume sitting on their desk, what's probably the first thing they're going to do? That's right. They're going to get online, they're going to Google your name, they're going to see where they can find you online, aren't they? You already know all that. The drunken parties, whatever it is that you don't want them to find, they'll find, right? So that part's easy. I don't want to sit here and talk to you about that. I want to talk to you about the next level of having a digital identity, having a digital brand, a digital footprint. Because most people don't know how to do it. Why do it? Number one, it'll set you apart. I don't care if you're starting your own business or you're just looking for a job. Maybe you're not going to be an entrepreneur. You just want to find a great job. Having a digital footprint, and I'll show you what I mean by that in a minute, clearly will set you apart from the others. It will focus your efforts. You're going to a lot of different classes. You're learning a lot of different things. And if you're like me, when I was your age, I had no clue what I was going to do. In fact, I didn't have any clue what I was going to do till a couple years ago, Shauna. finally kind of dawned on me, my 50s, right? So this will help focus you more quickly than not doing this. And number 3, it's really the perfect time, like Seth Godin said. So no more victim mentality, right? No more sitting there saying, oh, there's a recession, what am I going to do? I can't get a job, blah, blah, blah. Just put all that away, develop yourself a personal brand, and you'll be miles ahead of everybody else who isn't in this lecture today, right? Okay. Tom Peters, a really famous business author, said, regardless of the age, position, or the business you're in, all of us need to understand the importance of personal branding. We are the CEOs of our own company, me incorporated. Your most important job, and I think when you're in school, your most important job is to figure out how to market you. I think if you don't get anything else from this, if you walk out saying, I need to start thinking about how to market me, I think it will have been worth your time to be here. So how do you start? These are the kind of the action items I want to give you. And I'm going to race through them, but hopefully you'll be inspired by them and maybe go back and watch this and take better notes if you need to, because I'm going to go too fast. The first thing that I think you ought to do, whether you're a small business, a startup, or just your own brand, you've got to decide what you're going to... You got to decide how to describe what you do. It's surprising to me. I've gone into large corporations. I got hired about 5 years ago to go. Franklin Covey sold off all their paper planner division, and so they had to retool their company. And so they brought me in as a consultative resource to help them figure out how to talk about who they were. And when I started digging through their 30 years of history, they had never done this. You would think a company that size with worldwide, I mean, they're not as big now, but back in our day, 20 years ago or whatever, they were huge. And yet they really didn't know how to describe who they were or what they did. So it's been said by a famous monk one day, in order to have a dialogue with somebody else, you first must have that dialogue with yourself. So my first recommendation is, regardless of what it is, for you or your company, you need to have this dialogue. And I'll give you a real simple, I have like a 3-hour workshop I do on how to develop a brand statement, so I'm going to do it in like 2 minutes. But basically, there's a lot of ways to come to a statement like this, which would be what you do best, or what you're best at, what value do you bring, who are you doing it for, who's the audience, and how do you do this in a unique way? How can you own what you do? How can you write a statement that only you can own? And you say, well, I don't do anything special. I'm going to school. I got a job here, or whatever. It's because you haven't dug deep enough and you haven't thought about it long enough. Because all of us have things that we bring to the table in a unique way that nobody can do. You just need to learn how to identify those and talk about them, because it helps create a personal brand. My recommendation is get a stack of Post-it notes, big one, and get in a room by yourself on Saturday morning and say, I'm not going to leave this room until I have a personal brand statement, and take 3 hours and do this. Write a big word on every one of those Post-it notes, something that has to do with you, whether it's something you do uniquely or something you're interested in or something that's valuable to you, and write those words and put them up on a wall. And then sit back and look at them and try to figure out, how do they gel? How do they come together? What ones belong with each other? What's the hierarchy? What are the most important ones to you? And which ones support the most important ones? Just that simple exercise, in 30 minutes, you'll start to be able to develop this statement that I'm talking about that will be so valuable for you as you move ahead. And even if you don't know, still do one, because 3 years from now, you'll just do it again, and it'll be better. And 3 years from then, you'll do it again. I'm right in the middle of doing another one after having done 20 of them over the last many years. So think about what was exciting to you when you were a kid. Walking home from school, what did you see? Did you see a guy operating a forklift and you thought, that would be fun, I'd like to do that? What does that say about your personality? I was in an MBA program at UC Irvine many years ago, and I sat there and it dawned on me one day, I was halfway through the program, it dawned on me one day that I hate this. I can't stand this. And so I just got up in the middle of class and I walked down to the office and I just said, I'm out of here. And I quit, and I went to art school. So think about what was interesting to you as a kid and pay attention to it. It's okay. It's okay to pay attention to it. So list your unique qualities. Ask other people, but don't take that very seriously. If you're married, maybe ask your spouse what he or she thinks, because that'll help you a little bit. But the worst thing you want to do is start getting everybody's opinion. This is not like, you know, by popular vote, what you should be or what should be important to you. So don't take others' opinions too much. Organize and group those ideas like I just said, and then see if you can distill them into 3 things. What are the 3 things you bring of value? What are the 3 audiences you'd like to talk to? And what are the 3 components of your own unique way of doing it? It's often said if there's more than 3, what you're doing may be illegal. So see if you can distill it down to 3. Determine your audience, of course. You need to know who you're talking to. Now in school, your audience might be potential employers, but don't go through the usual channels. Don't try to talk to the human resource guys. They don't know anything. They're just employees. Figure out who's the decision makers at a higher level are and try to get to them. Try to target them as people you would like to talk to. Like if I could sit down with the CEO or CMO of this company, oh, I'd give anything to do that. And you could probably figure out a way to do it. Most of the time you can figure out a way to do it. Maybe not sit down with them, but you can break down that barrier and actually get a hold of influencers a lot of the time through social. Consider an inward and outward version. What I mean by that is when you write this brand statement, you might write one that's really only meant for you. And if when you read that, you say, oh, I could never put that on a website or something. It's too personal, or it's too edgy, or it's too whatever. Then write a version that you could put on a website, your outward-facing version. So you have kind of an inward and outward. In many cases, that can be the same brand statement. Finally, adjust it as needed. Don't think that it's set in stone, because it's not. Try to do something that you can set in stone as long as you can, but be willing to change it. Here's a couple of examples. In fact, I'm going to skip through these or I'm going to run out of time. But you can find other examples. In fact, what I'll do is I will summarize some of these slides and put them on my website. I'll show you the URL at the end. And you could go there and download the slide deck in case you want to read some of these things and not watch the video. So I'm going to skip through a few of these or I'm going to run out of time. If you're starting a business, I highly recommend a book called Zag. It's by a guy named Marty Neumeier, who is like the creative art director genius of the universe, in my opinion. This is a quick read. You can read this book in a few hours. But if you're thinking of starting a business, I warn you, don't start it without reading this book. My own brand, I'm retooling it. I'm retooling it. I've done so many. I've been a car dealer. I had a used car lot. I've been a stockbroker. I've been a restaurant owner. I mean, you name it, I've done it. Most of them not very well, but I sure learned a lot. Do you own your name in a .com? How many of you own your name in a .com? How many of you have such a common name there's just no way you've looked and it's like gone? Lots of people, right? Well, this is Jack Hadley. He lives in Denver. He bought jackhadley.com long before I thought to buy it. So, but I'll tell you an interesting follow-up story to that in a minute. So I started blogging on this thing, I called it Jack's Whiteboard, because I like to draw on whiteboards, and started blogging a few years ago to start to decide, how do I talk about what I'm good at? How do I start talking about that? Even if nobody reads it, how do I start talking about it? I'm going to talk more about blogging in just a minute. So I took all the things that I'd done in design and writing and all those things and started formulating sort of a content plan, sort of a way that I could talk about the things that were important to me. My most recent rendition of this mess has become this little background on my new site, which is not quite done. If you go there, you'll see it's still really sparse. And that's because Jack Hadley, the guitarist in Denver, wasn't watching his whatever he was watching and not watching, and he lost the URL one day, and I had a guy who was watching it for me. He called me and said the guy didn't register it this morning. So I got it. I registered it out from under him. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt him, but hey, it's business, right? So I'm in the process of retooling jackhadley.com. So by the way, if you do want to subscribe to what we're talking about today, right on the home page, you can put in your email there and subscribe, and that way when that comes out, you'll get a notification. Second, okay, so you build this personal brand statement. Second, you got to build a platform. I'm going to race through this. what tools to use. I mean, there's too many tools, right? I want you to think of this really simple concept of a hub and a spoke, and hub and spokes. In my opinion, whether it's personal brand or business, the hub of all social media strategy that's effective, the hub is a blog. The hub is a blog. I'll show you some reasons for that. Here's one quick clip. God, hope I don't run out of time. One quick one.
All right. Blogging is free. It doesn't matter if anyone reads it. What matters is the humility that comes from writing it. What matters is the metacognition of thinking about what you're going to say. How do you explain yourself to the few employees or your cat or whoever is going to look at it? How do you force yourself to describe in 3 paragraphs why you did something? How do you respond out loud? If you're good at it, some people are going to read it. If you're not good at it and you stick with it, you'll get good at it. But this has become much bigger than Are You Boing Boing or the Huffington Post. This has become such a micro-publishing platform that basically you're doing it for yourself to force yourself to become part of the conversation, even if it's just that big. And that posture changes an enormous amount.
I will simply say my first post was in August of 2004. No single thing in the last 15 years professionally has been more important to my life than blogging. It has changed my life, it has changed my perspective, it has changed my intellectual outlook, it's changed my emotional outlook, parentheses, and it's the best damn marketing tool by an order of magnitude I've ever had.
And it's free.
And it's free.
Okay, so you might think, okay, he's an old codger, he's a famous author, yeah, blogging, whatever, works for him, right? I promise you that same statement he just made, 50% of the students that come out of my MBA class would make exactly that same statement. That nothing has changed their professional life and their hopes for the future more than writing a simple blog, even if only their cat read it. It's true, it's a leap of faith, but you got to do it. It's important to do. Now I'm going to, well, let's see, in a minute I'm going to skip ahead because I'm definitely going to run out of time. So the idea is the blog becomes the focus. Don't ever build your identity or your company's identity on one of these spokes. The temptation is often to build it on Facebook. Why? Because there's a quadrillion people there, right? So you think, oh, well, I'll build it there. Never build your platform somewhere that you don't control. Don't build it there. You can be active there and point things back to your blog, but don't build your base there. I'm going to skip through a couple of these examples because there won't be time to show you. I want to make sure that I show you. I've got this really fun Instagram thing we've been doing, but I don't have time to show it to you. So I'm going to show you this slide, and we'll just go from here. So when you're thinking about this hub and spoke idea, there are lots and lots of tools that you can use. You don't have to use any of them if you really don't want to. Or maybe every business is different and every personal brand is different. A lot of these tools won't make any sense for your company or your startup. But the ones that do make sense, the idea should be that they're places to engage with people and to point eyes and interest back to your content. Back to your content. You noticed on my little page I showed you, what was one of the most prominent things on the home page was subscribe, right? Yeah, that's what I pointed to. Because I want to build my audience on a place that I control. Now, am I active on some of these others? Well, I'm not very active on them, but our company is extremely active on a lot of these other places. And it's designed to push people back to, not to my blog, but to our company blog. You'll notice I have a website down there as a spoke. We don't have time to talk about this. We could talk for an hour or so. But websites, for the most part, are not dynamic. And so, at least for a lot of our clients, we build this hub off of their website. And consider a website a great place to do SEO. It's a great place to try to fool Google into thinking you're more important than you really are, which points eyeballs back to your blog, which really is the purpose of a website. Because a website's not dynamic like a blog is. Number 3, you've got to create content. And you're thinking to yourself, what on earth would I blog about? I don't know what to blog about. Well, I'm going to I'm going to just throw out this idea, and we won't have time to develop it. But think of yourself as like a niche cable television station that has to come up with programming 24/7. What are you going to do? You're not going to pitch your own stuff all the time because people will get bored. They'll turn off the TV if all it was infomercials 24 hours a day, right? So think about other brands that have these kinds of content dilemmas. Like the Food Network. They could sell pots and pans or jujitsu knives or whatever they sell. They could sell that stuff all day, 24/7, but their viewership would just plummet, right? And the program director would be fired because nobody wants to be sold stuff all the time. So what does the Food Network do? Well, if you look at the shows that they produce, they try to pick the audiences that they're trying to talk to, and then they provide value to those audiences. So you look, I mean, these are just an example of some of the things that they produce. So they're talking to the audiences that are relevant in ways that are interesting to them, that keep people on the channel, which in turn, yeah, it sells advertising, right? And they make more money. The same with your brand or with your small business startup. Instead of yelling all the time about your stuff, find things that are interesting and of value to other people and publish about those and start to develop those. And then you're earning the opportunity to sell. You're earning the trust to then one day sell to them. Or just as a peripheral, they'll end up on pages where you're selling things. So not so much direct sales. So think about yourself as a programming director. Finally, I'm going to skip through a couple other examples here. Finally, I want to show you one last thing, because I want to leave a minute or two for questions. So after you've developed the kind of content you want to develop, start publishing. Don't wait. Nobody's reading it anyway when you first start, right? Because nobody knows it's there, so you can't make a mistake. Just start figuring out how to talk about yourself out loud. Finally, be persistent and consistent. I don't know how many guys I see and businesses and small businesses who get excited about this because they see the vision of it, and they write 3 or 4 posts, and then they write, you know, the next month they write 2, and then 1, and then... That's why 90% of the blogs you see are nothing's happening on them. It's because they give up. They can't see the reward quick enough. The idea, again, is just to engage one person. If you can get one person to read your blog and comment, that's like a huge victory if you take this approach to new marketing and to social media marketing. How many of you are familiar with All-Top? If you're unsure of what things to write about, this is Guy Kawasaki's blog where he basically distills the internet down to the very, very best blog writing. So regardless, like if you love pottery and you want to write about pottery, go to All-Top and search pottery and find the people that are really doing a good job talking about pottery, because it'll teach you how to blog about pottery in a way that's meaningful to people actually read. So business management, entrepreneurialism, whatever it is that you're into, find the people that are doing it really well. I recommend that you subscribe to ProBlogger. That's a really great site to help you learn to see why blogging is important. Mars Dorian, I talked about him before, marsdorian.com. This is probably the best, easiest to read, shortest, most concise, valuable business blog I know of. It's called Business Grow. It's written by a guy named Mark Schaefer. Subscribe to it. He publishes every morning. It'll take you 5 minutes to read this. You'll be brilliant after 3 months, I promise. You'll be smarter than all the business people you know if you read this blog. Chris Brogan, I mentioned him. Again, good thought leader. And then Seth Godin, who I've talked a lot about. I'll make sure these links are in the post when I publish it. So, finally, no reason to fear this stuff or to hesitate. It works, I promise. I see it over and over and over, whether it's small business or a personal brand. I know for me, we've hired everybody from what they write online. People send me resumes, I don't even look at them. I really don't give a fat rat's ass where they went to school. I really don't. I don't care what their grades were. I don't care that they graduated alpha, beta, whatever they graduated. I don't care. I want to know how they think. I want to know how they write. I want to know how they view the world. I want to know how aggressive they are about pursuing the things they love, because that's what I want in an employee. That's what I want in an employee. So, stay in touch with me if I can help you. Thanks. I can take a few questions. Thanks. I only left 2 minutes. I was supposed to leave 10, huh?
That's okay. I want to know how much time all this takes. How much time do you spend a day?
Once you have your tools built, a lot of my students spend an hour a week writing one really good blog post. And once you learn how to write a good blog post, you get fast at it. It doesn't have to be, it's not a novel, right? It's one really good paragraph. So it doesn't take a lot of time after you've kind of got your head right and got the tools built. Yeah. All right, yes?
Where do you go to do your blog?
Oh, good point. In my opinion, if you don't have a blog, the very best place to go is not Blogger or Tumblr or any of that kind of stuff. Go to WordPress. It's either org or .com. They own both. Which one is it where you start a blog in a minute? I think it's .com. So go to WordPress.com. You can have a blog set up in like 3 minutes. It won't look great yet, but it'll be set up and published. Yes?
This is actually more just to the class. I filed my first LLC with the state of Utah last week, and it was one of the toughest things I've ever done, trying to find a business name that had a available domain site. And it was really hard to find one that also had like the Facebook and the Twitter and the Instagram and the YouTube channel, just one, so it'd be just like continuity, like the same throughout all of the social media. So it was really hard to find a name that was available.
One way to start to do that, there's a site called NameCheck. It's N-A-M-E, like the name, C-H-K, not E-C-K, but NameCheck, C-H-K.com. I think it's .com or .org, where you can put in a name and it'll search that name across every site on the internet and show you which ones are taken and which ones aren't. So as you're thinking about a name, you don't have to have your name as a .com to develop a personal brand. If you can own it, I think it's best, because when people put in your name, that's the first thing that's going to come up every time, is if you own the .com. If people put in jackhadley.com or put in Jack Hadley in Google search, it's definitely going to be on page 1 anyway, the jackhadley.com. So if you can, if you can't, then think of something else. It's okay, be creative, look at some of these other blogs and see how other people are doing it.
So what did you go through to register your name?
I just do it through GoDaddy. I mean, yeah, I think they're the easiest, cheapest. We have, I don't know, a couple thousand domains with GoDaddy, I'm sure. They're a great company. I don't know about their advertising, but.
To put a name of a company, I would like to combine colors and meaning the colors and something like a track for a tracking company, or
okay.
Where I can get meaning.
Let's talk about that in just a second. Can you wait a minute?
Yeah, sure.
Come up and we'll talk about that in just a minute. That's a little more complicated answer. Yes? Mm-hmm. Well, the nice thing about WordPress is that if you go to WordPress.com and just set up a free account, then you're right. Your content's going to be on their servers. But the reason I recommend WordPress is because if you ever decide to actually get really serious about this, it's one click away and about $6 or $8 a year to actually have your own server space with a company like Bluehost. We use Bluehost a lot. And so I'd recommend at first just use WordPress.com, and then after a few months, if you're really enjoying it and you see the value, then get a Bluehost account and move. It's like 2 clicks to move from their platform to your own when you're using WordPress and a company like Bluehost. They do this all the time. And then you are in complete control of it. Does that answer that? Okay.
I think it's WordPress.org.
Is it WordPress.org? Okay. One of them is like the corporate site where you, and one of them's just, it says start now. It's either the .org or .com. Thank you.